The silent trap that keeps your body stuck in the past is not a lack of awareness about trauma. What holds you is the way the constant search for healing turns the nervous system into a guardian of cycles that should have already ended. While the mind gathers insights and emotional language becomes more refined, the body keeps operating as if danger was still present, repeating states of rigidity, vigilance, and collapse even decades after the threat is gone. What will be revealed in the next few minutes is a single somatic closing gesture, capable of informing the body that the cycle has ended and that the present can finally be inhabited as a real territory. There is a specific signal that trauma recognizes as an ending, but this signal is not cognitive. It does not come from understanding or storytelling. It comes from a physical orientation that updates how the nervous system reads time. If you leave this video now, you will continue forcing healing processes that keep the body orbiting what has already passed, missing the exact moment when this automatic repetition begins to loosen and the present starts to appear as a tangible space in the chest, in the breath, and at the base of the spine. What shaped the defense that still governs your body is about to encounter the gesture that dissolves it. The body does not distinguish memory from presence when a survival cycle remains open. What keeps this cycle active is not the intensity of what happened, but the absence of a physical signal that indicates completion. Without this signal, the organism preserves the original defense as if it were current information, shaping every breath, every muscular tension, every reaction to touch as a response to a threat that exists only in implicit memory. This phenomenon has a name in ancient somatic traditions and was recognized in rites of passage long before neuroscience existed. What you are about to discover is the specific gesture the nervous system recognizes as closure. In transition ceremonies, ancestral cultures understood that intense experiences needed bodily acts in order to be completed. Shamans guided deliberate movements, boundary-setting postures, and breathing patterns that created physical borders between what had been and what could begin. These were not metaphors or empty symbols. They were somatic technologies that informed the organism that the threat had ended and that the territory of the present was safe to inhabit. The body recognized these gestures as exit portals, allowing old defenses to release without collapse. This recognition happens because the autonomic nervous system operates through implicit memory, a record that lives below consciousness and governs automatic responses. When a defense installs itself without completion, it becomes a baseline pattern. Activating in response to any stimulus the organism interprets as similar to the original threat. The problem is that this interpretation is not rational. It happens through readings of tone, posture, and spatial orientation. If the body remains in a defensive configuration, it keeps signaling danger to itself, feeding the cycle. What interrupts this repetition is not understanding. It is physical reconfiguration that updates the body's sense of safety. Researchers in polyvagal theory discovered that autonomic states persist because the vagus nerve keeps defensive pathways active when it does not receive bodily indicators of resolution. The organism needs to feel a clear boundary, a defined spatial orientation, and a breath that reaches depth in order to interpret that the cycle has ended. When these three elements come together in a specific way, the nervous system can deactivate survival responses and return to a state of presence. The gesture that will be taught here organizes this exact triad, creating, for the first time in years, the physical experience of now as a territory separate from what was. This becomes essential when you realize that all chronic rigidity, all defensive procrastination, all sense of life being on pause, are connected to cycles that never received somatic closure. The exhaustion of constantly working on yourself without crossing the threshold into the present is not a personal failure. It is a sign that the body is still waiting for the physical command that allows it to release defense. There is someone who spent years caught in this trap, accumulating awareness, while the organism remained locked until she encountered the gesture that finally signaled an ending. What happened to her reveals how transformation unfolds when the body recognizes that it can stop defending itself. Kelly was 54 years old and worked as a nursing assistant at a private hospital on the outskirts of Portland, where she cared for patients recovering from orthopedic surgeries. Her days followed familiar protocols, yet even within the steady rhythm of her shifts, something in her body stayed tense, as if constantly anticipating error or confrontation. It was not the work that exhausted her. It was living in chronic readiness when nothing required defense, as if the organism had forgotten that it was allowed to rest. She noticed this in the brief pauses between patients, when her chest remained braced, her breath held between the ribs, her shoulders lifted, carrying an invisible weight no one else was placing there. The pattern Kelly carried began in a marriage that had ended 8 years earlier. But the legal divorce never closed the somatic response she had developed over 15 years of predicting mood changes, measuring words before speaking, and anticipating reactions to avoid conflict. Even living alone, her body stayed in vigilance mode, as if it still needed to calculate every movement, monitor every tone of voice, stay ready to withdraw or justify itself. This showed up in small things that seemed insignificant yet governed her entire life. Difficulty making simple decisions without diffuse anxiety, inability to fully relax even on days off, a constant sense of preparing for something that never arrived. Her mind understood that the danger was over, but her nervous system kept operating as if the threat was still in the next room. She had tried cognitive behavioral therapy for 2 years, building a detailed understanding of relational patterns and the origins of her defensive responses. She attended restorative yoga classes where tension would soften for a few minutes before returning. She practiced guided meditation every morning for nearly 1 year, developing the ability to observe anxious thoughts without getting lost in them. None of these approaches reached the root of the problem because they all worked through awareness and mental regulation, while the body continued to hold active, defensive states, waiting for a different kind of information that never arrived through words or intention. The discovery happened while Kelly was organizing the belongings of a patient who was being discharged after hip surgery. Among the personal items was a book on somatic trauma that the patient mentioned. She had started reading after years of chronic pain that no exam could explain. She described how certain pains in the body were physical memories of old events, and how a specialized physical therapist had taught her a specific closing gesture that, for the first time in decades, allowed the rigidity to truly release. Kelly asked for the name of the book and wrote it down, her hand trembling slightly, because something inside her recognized that she was about to encounter what no previous therapy had ever named. That night, she bought the digital book and read until she found the exact description of the gesture that created a physical boundary between past and present. Alone in her living room, Kelly applied the gesture for the first time. She stood with her feet hip-width apart, established clear spatial orientation by feeling the ground beneath the soles of her feet, placed one hand at the center of her chest, and created a physical sense of boundary between the space in front of her and the space behind her. She took a deep breath while repeating internally that the cycle was complete. In the first few seconds, nothing changed beyond the unfamiliarity of the movement. Then a subtle release began in the solar plexus. It was not muscular relaxation. It was something deeper, as if an internal latch that had held her body in a defensive position for years began to loosen for the first time. That exact moment, when Kelly's organism started to recognize completion, is what is about to happen now in your own body. The somatic closing gesture you are about to learn works exactly where the concept revealed earlier takes shape. At the point where the body keeps defensive responses active because it never received a physical signal of completion. This is not about relaxation or releasing surface tension. It is about creating a clear bodily reference that informs the nervous system that the cycle has ended, and that the present can be inhabited as real territory. The practice unfolds in 3 integrated layers: spatial orientation, bodily boundary, and a closing breath. Each of these layers speaks directly to implicit memory, updating the sense of safety that governs autonomic states. Begin by standing with your feet hip-width apart, the full soles of your feet touching the ground. Feel the weight of your body dropping through your legs, creating firm contact with the surface beneath you. Do not force stability. Simply allow gravity to do the work of anchoring your body in present space. Now bring your attention to spatial orientation. Consciously sense the space in front of you and the space behind you. This is not visualization. It is a physical perception of territory, as if the body were creating a sensory map of the environment around you. This orientation matters because the nervous system uses spatial references to determine whether it is in safety or threat. Place one hand at the center of your chest, over the sternum, with light but steady pressure. The other hand can rest by your side or on your abdomen, whatever feels more stable. The hand on the chest acts as a physical boundary marker, creating awareness of the line between what is inside your body and what is outside. This touch is not meant for comfort. It is somatic information the organism reads as a definition of personal territory. Take 3 deep breaths, allowing the exhale to be slightly longer than the inhale, without forcing the rhythm. Simply notice how the air enters, fills the chest, and leaves, carrying with it the urgency to keep defenses active. Now comes the layer of internal verbal closure, while maintaining the posture, spatial orientation, and steady breathing. Repeat internally with clarity. The cycle is closed, the danger is over, this body inhabits the now. You do not need to fully believe the words. What matters is that they are spoken while the body sustains the physical configuration of boundary and orientation. The nervous system does not respond to the sentence alone. It responds to the combination of posture, breath, and declared intention happening at the same time. Repeat this 3 times, allowing each repetition to settle in the organism before moving to the next. After the 3rd repetition, notice what begins to change in the body's tone. At first it may be subtle, a slight softening in the shoulders, an exhale that drops a bit deeper than before, a sense of internal space that was not there earlier. It may also appear as warmth in the center of the chest, weight lifting from the back of the neck, or the jaw softening without conscious effort. What matters is not the intensity of the change, but the recognition that something is loosening, that the body is beginning to register new information about safety and completion. If the body resists, if the sensation becomes one of increased rigidity or discomfort, adjust the practice. You can do the gesture seated instead of standing, reduce the pressure of the hand on the chest, or simply hold the spatial orientation without adding the specific breathing yet. Different bodies need different speeds to update defensive records, and forcing rapid opening can be interpreted as threat. The goal is to create space for the organism to recognize completion in its own time, not to impose change through willpower. Respect the rhythm your nervous system is signaling and move forward only when there is a noticeable reduction in vigilance. Before moving deeper into the second layer of the practice, there is something essential about Kelly that you need to know. Something that will illuminate exactly what is beginning to happen in your body right now. When Kelly applied the gesture for the first time and felt the internal latch begin to loosen, what came was not immediate relief. It was a deep sense of strangeness. For the first time in years, her body was not on standby. It was not calculating danger. It was not preparing to defend or justify itself. She realized she had forgotten what it felt like to inhabit the present without background vigilance. And the first days of this new perception brought disorientation, because the organism had to relearn how to function without the constant alarm that had become part of her identity. But as she repeated the gesture daily, concrete changes began to appear, not only internally, but in the way she moved through the world. The chronic rigidity that no stretching had ever resolved started to truly give way, especially in the area of the solar plexus and at the base of the neck. Kelly noticed she could make simple decisions without the diffuse anxiety that had previously paralyzed even ordinary choices, as if her body had stopped interpreting every action as a potential mistake. For the first time since the divorce, she began a personal project she had postponed for years. Not because she found some special motivation, but because defensive procrastination simply stopped governing her movement. Most importantly, her breathing began to drop naturally into the abdomen without conscious effort, a sign that the nervous system was finally recognizing safety as a baseline state, not as a temporary exception. What Kelly discovered by repeating the gesture over the weeks was that somatic closure is not a single event. It is a maintenance practice. The body needed to be reminded regularly that the cycle had ended, especially during moments of stress or when old patterns tried to take control again. But each time she applied the gesture, the return to presence happened faster, as if the organism were memorizing the path back to now. What is happening in your body at this moment is exactly the beginning of that updating process. The first time the nervous system receives clear physical information that it can stop defending what has already passed. Now that the body has begun to register boundary and orientation, the second layer of the practice deepens closure through a specific breathing pattern that anchors this new state. Maintain the posture, standing or seated, the hand on the chest, and the spatial orientation you have already established. We will now add a breathing rhythm that signals to the vagus nerve that the defensive response can be turned off. Inhale while counting to 4, hold the breath for 2 seconds, then exhale while counting to 6. The longer exhale compared to the inhale is what communicates safety to the autonomic nervous system, activating the ventral branch of the vagus nerve that governs states of connection and presence. Repeat this breathing cycle 5 times, keeping your attention not only on the count, but on the quality of the exhale. Let the air leave through slightly parted lips, as if you were releasing internal pressure that has been held for years. Do not push the breath out. Allow it to flow naturally while you keep the rhythm. With each exhale, notice whether there is further softening in the body, whether the jaw loosens, the shoulders drop, whether the chest that was braced begins to yield. What is happening physiologically is an update in the reading of threat. The body is rewriting implicit records that kept defensive responses active as a permanent default. The integration of spatial orientation, bodily boundary, and closing breath creates a synergy that no isolated technique can produce. The posture establishes present territory. The hand on the chest defines personal boundary, and the breath signals safety to the autonomic system. When these 3 layers operate at the same time, the organism receives coherent information on multiple levels, allowing survival responses to finally shut down because the overall signal points to real completion of the cycle. This is not mental persuasion. It is somatic language the body understands without needing cognitive translation. Complete the practice by maintaining the posture for another 30 seconds in internal silence, simply observing the state your body is holding now compared to 5 minutes ago. Notice whether there is more space between thoughts, whether the breath has found natural depth, whether the urgency to do or fix something has softened. These are signs that closure has begun to register in the organism that the nervous system is recognizing, perhaps for the first time in a long while, that it can inhabit the present without keeping background alarms active. The core practice is complete, and now comes the moment to seal this transformation in the body so it becomes a portable resource you can access whenever the past tries to take control again. The physical marker that confirms closure has begun to register in your body is found in the quality of your breathing. If you notice that the air now drops naturally into the abdomen without conscious effort, if the exhale feels deeper and meets less resistance, if there is a reduction in the sensation of a braced chest or a contracted solar plexus, then the nervous system is recognizing that the cycle has ended and that vigilance can be turned off. This is not temporary relaxation that fades when attention shifts elsewhere. It is an update in implicit memory that remains active as the body memorizes a new reference of safety. To anchor this state as a portable resource, you will use a signal gesture that can be repeated anywhere without drawing attention. Place your right hand over the center of your chest for 3 deep breaths, maintaining awareness of spatial orientation while repeating internally, "The cycle is closed, I inhabit the now." This touch, combined with the phrase, works as a somatic shortcut that reactivates the state of completion whenever the body begins to return to old defensive patterns. Practice this once a day over the next 1 week so the organism memorizes the gesture as a command for returning to the present. When you feel old rigidity coming back, the breath rising into the chest again, or diffuse vigilance taking control, apply the return protocol immediately. Stand or sit. Establish clear spatial orientation by sensing the space in front of you and behind you. Place your hand on your chest and complete 3 breathing cycles with a longer exhale than inhale. Repeat internally, "The danger is over. This body no longer needs to defend." What keeps cycles open is the absence of repeated closure signals. But now you have the exact tool to inform the nervous system that the past no longer governs the present. The seal is complete, and what unfolds from here depends on how you sustain in the body what was discovered in these minutes. A body that holds deeper breathing, less background vigilance, and the capacity to inhabit the present without reacting to the past is not the same body that began this video. Something has shifted in how the organism interprets safety, in the speed with which it can deactivate internal alarms, in the permission that now exists to move forward without resolving everything first. This change is not abstract. It lives in the quality of the exhale, in the softening of the solar plexus, in the reduction of chronic rigidity that no stretching ever reached. The nervous system has memorized, for the first time in years, that cycles can end and that the present is real territory, not just a mental concept. The somatic closure you applied here opens the way for other layers of release that are still waiting for a signal of completion in the body. Each defensive pattern installed at different moments in life carries its own somatic signature, its own unlocking gesture. The knowledge revealed in this video is an entry point into bodily wisdom that integrates trauma without reliving it, that closes cycles without needing to revisit stories, There is continuity on this path for those who recognize that true transformation happens when the body finally registers change, not only when the mind understands. Peter Levine wrote, "Trauma is not what happens to us, but what we hold inside in the absence of an empathetic witness." What was applied here is exactly that somatic witnessing, the gesture that allows the organism to release what it has preserved for decades while waiting for permission to let go. The source that governs the completion of natural cycles operates through the body, not in spite of it. Every breath that drops into the abdomen, every defense that finally softens, every moment in which the present becomes inhabitable is an expression of the creative intelligence that shapes life through conscious matter. God is not separate from the organism that recognizes closure. God is inscribed in the capacity to update implicit records and allow the past to be left behind. If this content brought real change to your body, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications. Your interaction sustains the continuity of this work and allows more people to access somatic knowledge that unites ancestral wisdom with modern neuroscience. Write in the comments, "I recognize the end of the cycle, and I inhabit the present without defense." By declaring this publicly, you anchor the transformation in consciousness and create a witness of change that the organism recognizes as real commitment. If you want to continue exploring other layers of somatic release and discover where else the body still holds defenses that ask for closure, click the video appearing on the screen to continue this journey. A body that recognizes the end of a cycle carries a wisdom no mind alone can reach. It knows when to release, when to integrate, and when to allow the present to finally begin.